Hey all, thank you so much for having me here at Pyth Data Driven 2023. It's fantastic to chat with all of you and follow some truly talented folks. Let's just dive right in. I'm Matt, a core contributor at Synthetix, and I'll be talking about Synthetix as the liquidity layer for DeFi. So let's just jump right into some introductions at first. I'm Matt, a longtime DeFi user and a contributor at Synthetix. I've been around since the early days of DeFi, since the coolest thing you could do on chain was use Yearn and Curve at the same time. And we thought that was revolutionary. And at the time, there wasn't really that many things you could do. But you may also recognize me from the Pyth website. I'm an esteemed member of the website. If you scroll down, far enough, you'll see a video that says making Synthetix perps competitive. And that'll be a highlight of my presentation as well, but I'll get into that soon. So why am I here? I'm here because 2023 has been a momentous year for both Synthetix and Pyth. Around this time last year, Synthetix governance was working through a proposal to decide if Pyth oracles could be used for one market for Synthetix perps new offering. Now, these same pull-based oracles are the standard across the industry. Synthetix perps has done 35 billion in volume, delivered tens of millions in fees to liquidity providers, and Pyth has been at the center of this. This has been a fantastic partnership, and I'm beyond elated to be here. If there's one thing that I need you to leave this presentation with, it's the same thing I said back in February when we made that Synthetix perps video with Pyth. It's that Pyth oracles made Synthetix perps competitive. It allowed fees to be cut drastically and be in line with centralized exchanges and improve the trader experience. But more on that very soon. So, what am I going to be chatting on today? I'm going to walk through a brief Synthetix history. I'm going to go through a little bit of the state of crypto asset derivatives, talk about V3 and the future of Synthetix, and we'll talk on Pyth and Synthetix's relationship. So, a short story on Synthetix. Synthetix started not under the Synthetix name, but it started as Haven in 2017. Haven was a stablecoin protocol. It's most similar to something like MakerDAO and DAI today. This protocol then transitioned into Synthetix, and Synthetix V2, what we call it now. This was a spot exchange protocol. It allowed users to trade from one synthetic asset to another. So think of trading from SBTC at a set oracle price to SETH or SUSD, or something along those lines at a set oracle price with a flat fee attached to it. Now, this was great at the time when liquidity was scarce, but Synthetix has since moved on from this particular focus. Synthetix had also pioneered commonplace DeFi incentives, like liquidity mining on Curve. So this spot exchange protocol focused on working directly with users. There were things like Synthetix Exchange and things of this nature, which went directly to users and interfaced with them. But this transition to this liquidity layer, and then this real transition to Synthetix V3, flips that idea on its head, where Synthetix now intends to be a back-end liquidity and infrastructure protocol. We're in the midst of this transition as we speak. The transition to Synthetix V3 is one that will allow protocols to build on top of the liquidity and infrastructure of Synthetix. Think of Synthetix as the lowest level of a money Lego to build whatever DeFi derivative and on-chain derivative that developers want. Now, this end goal vision for Synthetix V3, this onwards portion, is that the protocol will be free of governance and permissionless. So with that, DeFi developers would only be reliant on a few things. They would be reliant on oracles. They would be reliant on their own market design. And then from there, they would just build on top of Synthetix liquidity and Synthetix infrastructure and build derivatives and innovate on chain. But before we dive into Synthetix V3, let's kind of set the stage for crypto's dirty little secret about derivatives. So this dirty little secret in crypto is that crypto still relies heavily on centralized perps, centralized spot, and various other centralized derivatives for most of its volume. I pulled this screenshot from Delphi Digital, and the headline here is that decentralized perps chip away at centralized perps volume lead. Now, this little sliver of orange, or was that pink? This little sliver of pink is DEXs chipping away. Now, you can barely see that. It is like non-existent. That is because centralized perps do leaps and bounds more volume than decentralized perps do. So when decentralized perps protocols like Synthetix and others say, and they celebrate doing 2, 3, 400 million in volume per day, it doesn't even scratch the surface of what centralized perps and such are doing. Let me put this into more perspective for you. And yes, I did steal this from a recent stat from one of Kane's most recent talks. So on a random day, Binance perps will do about, let's say, 30 billion or so in volume. Now, this is just Binance, but anyway, Binance will do about 30 billion in volume. On that same day, the entire on-chain perps landscape will do about 1.5 billion in volume. That's an order of magnitude higher than what all these on-chain perps derivatives protocols are doing. And this is just Binance. This is one of many centralized options. Now, with that, there's a problem here. The problem is that we preach decentralization, we preach bringing people on-chain. But when it comes down to it, people are still using centralized systems to interface and get exposure with crypto assets. Now, why are they doing this? Why in a world of decentralized finance are people still using centralized services to get exposure to it? That's because there are problems plaguing on-chain derivatives and pushing people to centralized exchanges. I like to break these into problems that focus on two groups. The first group is the traders, the people that are actually generating the volume. And then there's the developers and the protocols and the LPs that are actually allowing trading to occur. So for a trader, centralized exchanges have a better user experience, a better sign-on experience. You don't have to worry about a key. They have ample liquidity. They can quickly scale up with new assets, and they don't have to worry about any of the on-chain decentralization or anything. They're a centralized system. Obviously, that comes with downfalls of awkward CEOs being able to just steal all your money, but that's a problem for a different time. So when a trader lands on a DeFi derivatives protocol, they may not have all the assets they want. They may not have all the liquidity they want. And with that, if they don't find everything they want, they go to another centralized exchange or somewhere else to get everything that'll suit their needs. So when it comes to this other group is this developer protocols and things of this nature. Many great derivative protocols have struggled with sourcing liquidity, building out infrastructure that can compete with their off-chain centralized competitors. And even when you build a great protocol, they're potentially forced to give the house away in tokens to source even a small amount of liquidity. So these are the problems that Synthetix V3 aims to solve. With Synthetix V3 and this liquidity layer, Synthetix will be the protocol that you tap into for liquidity and infrastructure. Developers can then focus on building out the best protocol, and traders can come to the Synthetix ecosystem and find all the derivatives that they want. So let's talk about this liquidity layer. So this system, this liquidity layer for DeFi, is meant to solve this cold start liquidity problem. And with this, it allows derivative developers to access ample liquidity for their needs. It also intends to allow them to build on Synthetix infrastructure. This is battle-hardened tech that has been built and adjusted over the years. Composability is critical to all of this, and this entire system is composable and allows developers to build and integrate permissionlessly. This system, as said before, also intends to be a one-stop shop for on-chain derivatives traders. That's a critical part here. You want traders to enter the Synthetix ecosystem, find everything they need, and stay within the ecosystem instead of having to go elsewhere. So let's talk about Synthetix V3 and what it is. At the heart of Synthetix V3 is an innovative approach to derivatives. It's not just a platform. It's not just one perpetual futures, like derivative type. It's a protocol that enables anyone to provide liquidity to derivatives and earn rewards via collateralized debt positions or CDPs. These CDPs are the same ones that you'd find at a protocol like MakerDAO or Liquidity or one of the many others, but with the added benefit of being able to delegate your CDP to derivative markets and earn rewards. So with these pools and markets, Synthetix V3 introduces an idea of pools. These are essentially collective CDPs or pools. and these act as reservoirs of liquidity. This liquidity is then channeled into markets where it can be used to trade derivatives. The potential for market building on top of Synthetix V3 is vast. We'll get into this a bit on another slide, but you can build things like perpetual futures and options, insurance markets, NFT-fi borrowing protocols, and no-loss lotteries like pooled together. So there's so much that can be built. And these developers will be using Synthetix Liquidity as a service, and they'll also be using Synthetix Infrastructure as a service. And this entire system is built in a way to be as agnostic and generalized as possible, and as modular as possible. And there's so many possibilities within this generalized approach. And it's going to be really exciting to see what people can build atop Synthetix. So how does this system work? How does this liquidity layer actually work? So it starts with liquidity providers. They direct their governance-approved collateral, say something like ETH, SNX, USDC, things of this nature, to pools. These pools then allocate liquidity to derivative markets, like Synthetix perps, which are then used by traders. Fees then flow the opposite way through the system. As traders generate them, they go back to markets, they flow to pools, and they flow back to the liquidity providers. Now, this is a little bit more of a complex look into the system, but this entire system aims to be a sandbox for on-chain derivatives development, and it also aims to optimize the developer experience so they can focus on building and innovating, instead of having to focus on all this infrastructure and all this back-end complexities. So now we're going to look at the system from a simplified view. It's the same view as before. We just cut out all the all these extra pieces of it. But same explainer as before. Liquidity provider delegates collateral to a pool. That pool then provides liquidity to markets, and then markets allow traders to interact with it. So let's chat through some of these Synthetix V3 example markets and the possibilities that can be built on top of this generalized and modular approach. So you can build things like perpetual futures, options, structured products, no-loss lotteries, sports betting, prediction markets, NFT borrowing, perpetuals. And as I said before, you can really build anything. The only real prerequisite is that there's an oracle that can actually assign the price of this particular asset that a person wants to trade. And then also there has to be liquidity providers that want to provide liquidity to these assets. So let's now take a look at one of the example markets, perpetual futures, and we're going to take a look at it from the lens of Synthetix perps and dive into its successes. So Synthetix perps is a massive success story. It is the most liquid, has the lowest fee, has the best risk management for liquidity providers, it's delta neutral, and supports the largest number of markets in all of DeFi perps. The standards that Synthetix and Pyth have built together using pull-based oracles and around risk management features are now the standards across the industry. It is the powerhouse of on-chain perps. Quenta and Polynomial, the two most used integrators of Synthetix perps, have built on these benefits to make the trading experience as amazing as possible for users. Synthetix perps has done about 35 billion in trading volume, onboarded tens of thousands of traders, and delivered tens of millions back to Synthetix perps LPs. The data here speaks for itself. Plus, it's the most forked DeFi perps protocol in all of DeFi, which means it has to be doing something right. So let's go back to the benefits of Pyth. So yet again, I stress to you, Pyth makes Synthetix perps competitive. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Pyth is the reason that Synthetix was able to slash fees to be in line with centralized exchanges, improve the trading experience, and deliver the great stats I just delivered to you. The product before Pyth was not onboarding centralized traders. It was not bringing in new developers and protocols to innovate atop Synthetix, and it was really not a great product. Because of Pyth, this Synthetix perps market has seen immense success. But let's dive into how it came to be. So the story of how this comes to be is the most DeFi and decentralized governance story of them all. It starts with a few lines in the Synthetix perps V2 proposal that details a need for pull-based oracles. At the time, they were referred to as hybrid oracles. The idea was that the current trading experience in perps V2 wasn't ideal. The fees were too high, and we didn't have a provider who was building the solution. Pyth notices this need, writes up a SIP, presents it to Synthetix governance, and Synthetix governance takes a look. I'd be lying to you if I didn't say the community was wary. But once the integration was complete and folks saw it in action, that wariness went away immediately. So I'm going to show you what this comparison between perps v1 and perps v2 looks like, so you see what being in action looks like. So let's look at this from a side-by-side comparison. Perps v1 supported less than, let's say, 10 assets or so. It had very high fees due to the usage of slow oracles, and these slow oracles caused the need for these high fees to mitigate against front-running risk, which isn't just painful for users trying to front-run, it's painful for all users. And it limits the ability to onboard centralized traders that are used to a low-fee environment. Due to this, the volume is very low. It was about 5.2 billion, and it doesn't attract many builders. With perps v2, and perps v2 is powered by Pyth, it supports about 70 plus assets across crypto, commodities, Forex, and so on. Has very low fees due to pull-based oracles, has done 35 billion in volume, and has onboarded many traders and builders across the ecosystem. Now, perps is only the beginning. With V3 on the horizon, we'll see additional innovations built on top of core V3 and perps V3. So let's dive into the future of Synthetix. In the immediate future, like a few weeks from now, during December, Synthetix will launch its Andromeda release. This is core V3 and perps V3 on a new chain base with a new collateral type, USDC. Traders will also be able to use and deposit USDC and use it for trading. Builders that we all know and love across the Synthetix ecosystem, including Quenta, Polynomial, new builders like Infinex, and D-Hedge, and many others will be coming with Synthetix to build on base across the Optimism superchain. So perps v3 will also fully utilize Pyth off-chain oracles, and this will be the first time that Synthetix does not use any slow push-based oracles, because in v2 we still utilize these push-based oracles as a backstop. This comes with benefit to the system. We'll chat about them in a second, but this will decrease gas cost and improve the trader experience drastically. This Andromeda release and the usage of a new collateral type on a new chain alongside experimentation around a fee share for Synthetix because of the usage of a new collateral type and integrator fee share is all an experiment, and the Synthetix community and governance will be tracking things as time goes on. Past this short-term point, Synthetix V3 will begin to really take shape. Developers will be onboarded across multiple chains. Many derivative apps will be built on Synthetix, and a multi-chain future will begin to open up. The sky is the limit. As I said before, perps is only the first product, but we hope to help support derivative protocols in their quest to bring many types of derivatives on-chain. In the future, we could even see the usage of a fully interconnected cross-chain system, but governance is still working out the details on this side of things. So let's now go into what's to come for Pyth and Synthetix. As said, with this Andromeda release and going forward for V3 perps, this will be the first release that Synthetix uses pure pull-based oracles. There will be no additional reliance on slow push oracles. This comes with a host of benefits. As said before, you have lower gas, you have an easier multi-chain building environment as you don't need copies of the same push feed across many chains. And speed to market for new assets drastically increases, and cheaper gas, as said before. So there's also this improvement around benchmark pricing. This will improve some of the settlement for Synthetix perps trading and further reduce this risk of optionality front running. Alongside that, with Synthetix V3, there is so much new market potential that Pyth can tap into and be the oracle for traders. It'll open up many possibilities, and we're excited to see what will come out of that. Pyth will also continue to support the 70 plus existing perps markets, plus new markets. I think we have a batch of, 6, 7 coming out just this week. So this amazing relationship with Synthetix and Pyth started with a few lines and a proposal, and has blossomed into one that has generated tens of billions in volume, delivered tens of millions to LPs, and improved the trading experience for new users. Plus, This approach and this sort of building has changed DeFi forever. DeFi and decentralized systems are truly amazing in this way. Composable tech, open source nature, and teams working together achieve so much. I can't wait to see what the future holds for both Synthetix and Pyth. So thank you so much for having me here today. I greatly appreciate your time. I'll drop some links in the chat to some Synthetix V3 pieces that you can take a look at, and then the Synthetix Discord. So massive love to the entire Pyth community, and have a great rest of your conference.